Richard Mason had always believed in the life he'd built. As a successful businessman and millionaire in the United Kingdom, he prided himself on his achievements, his marriage, and above all, his 3 sons. But in 2016, his world was turned upside down in a way he could never have anticipated. What started as a routine doctor's appointment unraveled decades of lies, leaving Richard questioning everything he thought he knew. This is the story of betrayal, heartbreak, and resilience, and how Richard discovered the shocking truth about his family. At 55 years old, Richard was a co-founder of the British price comparison website MoneySupermarket.com and lived a comfortable life. Despite being divorced from his wife Kate since 2008, he remained devoted to his 3 sons, Will, 23, and 19-year-old twins Ed and Joel. He provided for them generously, even after the divorce settlement awarded Kate a lump sum of $5 million and the promise to cover private school fees for the boys. But on an ordinary day in 2016, everything changed. Richard visited his doctor for a routine checkup, expecting nothing more than standard tests and assurances of good health. Instead, the doctor delivered life-altering news. Richard had cystic fibrosis, a genetic condition that primarily affects the lungs. The disease is serious but manageable with treatment. Yet that wasn't the part of the diagnosis that left Richard reeling. As the doctor explained the implications of cystic fibrosis, he revealed something even more devastating. Men with this condition are typically infertile. Richard's mind raced. Infertile? That couldn't be true. He had 3 sons. There had to be some mistake. "You must have the diagnosis wrong," Richard protested. "I have 3 boys." He clung to this belief, hoping it would somehow disprove the doctor's conclusion. But the doctor simply shook his head. "I'm sorry, Richard. The science is clear." It was a moment that shattered Richard's reality. The children he had cherished, supported, and loved for over 2 decades might not be his biological sons. In the days that followed, Richard replayed his life with Kate in his mind, searching for clues he might have missed. Their marriage had lasted nearly 20 years, beginning in the 1980s when they first met while working together. It had been far from perfect. By 2007, the relationship was crumbling, leading to their divorce the following year. At the time, Richard had accepted the end of their marriage with little regret, finding solace in his role as a father. He often said his 3 sons were the only good thing to come from their union. But now, that belief was in jeopardy. Certain memories began to take on new meaning. Richard recalled how during their marriage Kate had suddenly developed an interest in Judaism, despite both of them being raised as Christians. She'd even insisted on giving their children Jewish middle names and sought advice from a rabbi. At the time, Richard had thought little of it, dismissing it as a harmless quirk. Other moments also came back to him. Kate had frequently traveled for work as a union official, often staying in hotels in London. Richard worked long hours himself and had rarely questioned her absences. But now, he wondered, had she been meeting someone else? Even the physical appearances of his sons began to nag at him. None of them resembled Richard, but he had always brushed off comments from friends and family. "They have Kate's features," he'd say, proud nonetheless. Now, he wasn't so sure. Unable to bear the uncertainty, Richard decided to confront Kate directly. He sent her a message that cut straight to the point. "Hi, I went to the Liverpool Chest Hospital today and received a diagnosis of cystic fibrosis. The doctors told me it is 98% certain that I am infertile. Can you explain this?" Kate's response was dismissive and defensive. "Of course the boys are yours," she replied, "no matter what the science might suggest." Frustrated and suspicious, Richard demanded a more honest answer. "I was hoping you could relieve me of the indignity of further tests by telling me the truth now," he wrote. "But if you force me to proceed, I will be telling the boys as I see fit." Kate's silence spoke volumes. Realizing he wasn't going to get the truth from her willingly, Richard turned to his eldest son, Will, who was then a university student. When Richard told him about the diagnosis and its implications, Will's reaction was measured but heartbreaking. "I'm already ahead of you, Dad," Will said. "You're saying you're probably not my biological father." Richard's heart broke. "Of course, I'm still your dad," he reassured Will. But the weight of the revelation was almost too much to bear. Determined to uncover the full truth, Richard sought the help of paternity fraud expert Roger Terrell. DNA tests confirmed his worst fears. The twins, Ed and Joel, were not his biological children. Will refused to take a DNA test, but the evidence was already overwhelming. When confronted again, Kate finally confessed. She admitted to having an affair during their marriage with a man who worked at Barclays Bank, a man Richard had met briefly on one occasion. She revealed that they had met in hotels during her work trips and that he was the biological father of the boys. However, she refused to disclose his identity publicly. For Richard, the betrayal cut deep. The woman he'd shared 2 decades of his life with had deceived him on the most fundamental level. The sons he'd raised as his own, the boys he'd loved unconditionally, were the product of another man's affair with his wife. Despite the devastating revelations, Richard's love for his sons remained unwavering. The twins, Ed and Joel, expressed their support for him, insisting that he would always be their dad. One of them wrote a heartfelt message. "Dad, as I've explained from the beginning, you will always be my dad to me, regardless of all this. Of course, I'll stay in touch. That will never change. Love you." Will's response was similarly affirming. Though he refused to participate in the DNA testing, he told Richard, "As far as I'm concerned, you're my dad, and that's that." These messages were a source of solace for Richard, even as he grappled with the loss of the life he thought he knew. In December 2016, Richard decided to take legal action. He filed a case against Kate for paternity fraud, seeking financial compensation for the years he had supported children who were not biologically his. The court ruled in his favor, awarding him over $300,000 in damages. However, Kate's condition for settling the case was that the biological father's identity remain anonymous. Though the court victory provided some vindication, it was a hollow one for Richard. "I'm still the same person I was before," he said, "but my life feels like it's been built on a lie." Richard also had a message for the boy's biological father. For their sake, he should come forward, he said. They deserve to know who their biological father is. Even so, I hope they will always think of me as their dad. Richard's story is one of resilience in the face of unimaginable betrayal. While the truth shattered the foundation of his life, his bond with his sons endured. Through it all, Richard's unwavering love and commitment to the boys he raised remind us that fatherhood is about more than biology. For Richard, the journey forward is about finding peace and redefining his legacy. "You can't change the past," he says, "but you can decide what kind of future you want to have."